the Fan3Cast, dishing out the hottest NASCAR news and views while celebrating the three's historic comeback. Here are your hosts, Michael Metzger and Jason Schultz. Snow aside, crazy weather in New York. Jason and I are battling the elements, well, luckily indoors, to bring you the latest edition of the Fan3Cast.
Weather seems to follow NASCAR all around, so it's appropriate we're doing a show about everything in some wild weather. But last weekend the weather was no issue for NASCAR, as Las Vegas had a phenomenal weekend of sunny and hot weather, which we're pretty jealous of. But that weather may have created some exciting and untypical racing. I mean, not typical racing for Las Vegas, because it was exciting. I was really into most of the race. I don't know about you, but I thought it was just the best Vegas race I've ever seen.
One race in, it seems like they might have fixed the mile-and-a-half problems, because there were drivers making passes left and right without too much of an issue, instead of just getting into the single file and just kind of riding out their time.
And the finish was added to the excitement of the race, because we typically don't see that kind of, like, the last 20 laps where a driver's chasing another driver. You know, as Keselowski did to Earnhardt Jr. in the last lap, everything changes all of a sudden. So if that's the forecast for other mile-and-a-half racetracks this season, I think we may be in for the more exciting races coming at mile-and-a-half once in a while.
Well, I think what plays into that is once we get more drivers with wins, more people are going to be willing to gamble like Dale Earnhardt Jr. did over the weekend. He knew he was going to be short on fuel, but they kind of tried to stretch it anyways. It bit him, but hey, he still got a second-place finish out of it. And
it was a really cool story to follow at the end of the race, seeing that they were going to take a fuel gamble, and by the time we get to summer, like you said, there will be many more drivers doing that, and we could just see some fantastic finishes.
We disagreed with each other at the beginning of the year with the rules change and how the chase works and all that stuff, but I'm not 100% going to concede it just yet, Jason. Changing it to more winning matters is probably one of the best things that NASCAR has done so far, if the trend continues like this.
Don't worry, by Homestead, you'll be all on my side.
Yeah, at Homestead, something silly is going to happen, and I'm just going to be like, well, this was the worst decision ever.
Well, I will remind you of what you just said. One team that wasn't too fond of the exciting mile-and-a-half racing this weekend was definitely Stewart-Haas Racing. They had a pretty awful performance on Sunday.
The lone bright spot, and he finished 41st in it, was Kevin Harvick, who was up leading laps before. As I was talking to my dad, he actually pointed out, he's like, he was going so fast, he blew out the hub. And that's what happened, his left front hub went. So, yeah, you take Harvick out of the equation, and that team just was terrible this weekend. They weren't really that good at Phoenix. Daytona they ran into issues, but yeah, Danica Patrick, highest finishing driver for them in 21st position.
She was pulling the weight for that team this weekend, and I'm betting she hopes that the other boys are pulling their weight too if they want this team to succeed.
Yeah, and Tony Stewart, what was up with that? He finished 33rd. He was 3 laps down. He was almost non-existent. I was reading the team report afterwards, and they pointed to a loose race car all race long that they couldn't get the handle on. But wow, that's not Tony Stewart.
Yeah, it was definitely not the driver we expected to come into the season. I thought he'd be really strong and really contending early, because he said he's all back good and he's ready to go after another title, and that just right now doesn't look like it, even though he can get a win at one of his better tracks later in the season and still make the chase. But I think he's got to step up his performance if he wants to be in contention for any wins.
It's just interesting because I think, we all kind of saw this coming with expanding to 4 teams, that there might be some growing pains for them. Maybe Harvick's performance at Phoenix, where he dominated that race, kind of raised our expectations a little unrealistic for the team.
And I think Harvick's deal, SHR has nailed that team with putting Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick together. They're going to be an all-star team, and they may just be the bright spot of SHR season. unless the other teams can really figure out something, I just see the number 14 probably being the talk of that team throughout the season.
Yeah, my gut tells me that Harvick's probably going to outperform them for most of the year. I think Busch needs time to gel with his new crew chief, and the same could be said about Tony Stewart. And then Danica Patrick, I mean, she has the tools at her disposal, so it'll be interesting to see her maturation throughout the year.
One that she really needed a good Vegas performance because she was very low in the owner point standings, or very high, whatever way you want to look at it. She could have been on the bubble this weekend at Bristol for making the race, but I think she's got plenty of drivers underneath her that she should get to make the race when the owner's points for 2014 kick in. But if she didn't have a good performance on Sunday, we could be talking about a whole other set of issues that team would be facing.
And it was interesting to hear during the race broadcast that tutelage from Kevin Harvick actually was benefiting Patrick most of the end of the race, involving dragging the brake going into the corners. And that's just a good example of, what having Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch, champions at various levels of NASCAR, will do to help her, improve as a driver.
I most look forward to seeing how she does at Martinsville, because she had great performances last year, and if she's learning a lot of new things from her teammates this year, could she be even better, maybe get a top 10 at Martinsville, which just seems wild, knowing that that's probably a hard track to manage, and she's already got the feel for that track down.
One driver that we already kind of mentioned here that had a little bit of heartbreak at Las Vegas but shouldn't be hanging his head too low is Dale Earnhardt Jr., who finished second but was within a corner of winning that race.
And it was an exciting race. He and Stewart-Haas knew they had nothing to lose by gambling on the field at the end, and they were just about half a lap from making that gamble work. And it was a really fun story to watch, to see that. We'll be seeing a lot more of that throughout the season to come, that a driver taking the fuel mileage, playing that game late in the race, and we saw Dale was the first one to do it this season, but there will definitely be some more drivers doing later in the year once they start getting wins and start locking up with chase spots.
And it will be interesting, too, to watch, Junior, because he's statistically wasn't ever good at Las Vegas, and then all of a sudden finishes second. Now we're going to Bristol, that's right in his wheelhouse. Auto Club is a track up his alley. Martinsville. We're kind of hitting a good spot of tracks for Junior. And we'll talk about this more later in our preview of Bristol, but
his top two streak seems like it being a thing that would be able to continue at Vegas, but now that it has, it opens the door up for probably a lot better chance for it to continue throughout the next few weeks at Bristol and Fontana and Martinsville.
And he suffered a heartbreak. His heartbreak worked well into the hands of Brad Keselowski, who picked up the win Sunday by having more fuel than Junior, and at the same time picked up the sweep because he won the Nationwide Series race on Saturday.
I saw a tweet at the end of the race that May, so that's his first ever career sweep, so that was a pretty big milestone for Keselowski. He's always winning nationwide races, and it seems a while that this may be his first time he's ever won both on the same weekend.
I never thought of that, but that's an interesting stat. Yeah, for all his Nationwide Series wins, because he's got a good number of them by now, and he's been winning more with the Cup Series.
And with being able to take a few more gambles on that, he has to win. I think that really makes him one of the drivers you have to watch out for now, a little more than before, because Brad Wolf is really a strategic master, and now that all they really have to do at the end of the races is play some strategy, try to get the win. You may see a really dominant Brad Keselowski emerge over the next few months.
Yeah, but the only thing that went wrong for him over the weekend was during his victory celebration Sunday during the Cup race. It looked like he got about a bottle of Miller Lite dumped in his eye and spent half his interview trying to, clear that out, which was amusing to us, but probably not too amusing to Brad.
Yeah, my eyes are sort of watering just thinking about getting that in your eyes and just having to deal with all that and do the interview. Must have been a pretty crazy little minute for Keselowski.
So we shift gears to the race broadcast, Fox again, and just to throw this out here, I was thinking about it, we're not trying to pick on Fox because we're going to keep the shtick up, throughout the course of the year, and of course Fox has the first part of the year, so naturally we're going to be talking about Fox week in, week out, but then it'll shift to TNT and ESPN and all the like. So we're in week 3 of the series, and I chuckle there because we're talking about the darn leaderboard once again.
And we're not talking about it being improved, we're talking about it really staying the same or even getting a little bit worse. But one thing I noticed was very inconsistent what it was showing. At some points it would be showing really 3 columns of drivers and flipping back and forth through the field. And at other points they're showing the intervals between the drivers, and then sometimes it wasn't even showing anything at all, and then it was like 2 columns with no intervals. So I just wish they would pick something and stick to it instead of changing it all the time. But the intervals are a good thing, but just maybe keeping them up throughout the race would make it even better.
I'm going to dip a little ahead here because we usually have 3 observations, and this was our number 1 observation, and our third observation involves a green flag pit stop bar, which appears on the right-hand side. I'm going to group these together because not only are they both display issues with Fox, but kind of like what you're saying, Jason, it's just you don't understand what's going on, and they're not very self-explanatory. Looking at the leaderboard, why at some junctures do they show the top 3? When do they pick to go through the field? When do they pick to just show people? It seems very random when they do it. And then that green flag pit stop bar, I wish we had a better name for it. I don't know what the heck that's trying to tell us. I mean, it shows us people on pit road, but, there's green, there's red. It doesn't really show where they're coming out. It just shows that they're there. We need a guide or something.
And then there's numbers disappearing all the time, and you see drivers, like it says first place for what? Are they on pit road? I mean, they have the best, I don't really know. So if Fox could either ditch that or really explain it better, I think that would be useful. And I like that after the yellow flag pit stop, they do go through the field of who came off pit road first. So I think they're trying to recreate that with the green flag pit stops, but I think it's just creating a whole mess, and that's another aspect that they should either fix up or really get rid of.
I'm trying to think even what would be beneficial in that situation, other than maybe just having a box that says on pit road, and then, either list the drivers or say something like, I don't even know, like coming down pit road, install, leaving or something like that.
It's true. I just really wish that they would just not really show it, I guess, because it just doesn't really make any sense when you're trying to just understand it. You just confuse yourself even more and just get even madder at what's going on.
Yeah, I'd have to rank it up there with, I got the Race View package last year, and they have an option for pit stops, which was cool if you wanted to look retroactively at each pit stop, but while they're happening live, it might have been my computer, it never seemed to load properly, plus it never seemed to pick up the action as it's happening. So I found it as one of the most useless things ever, although it is kind of cool to see the breakdown of the times of the driver coming down pit road, how fast the crews are going, that sort of information I like.
And you said overall, would you recommend the Race View package? I know some fans are really on the edge of if you want to buy it or not, but you say you like it overall.
I got it for the last month of the season, and what I did this year was I actually just got the audio package that they offer, because not only is it a lot cheaper, but what I was finding with the Race View package, and I don't know, I understand you can't show video of the race. I was kind of hoping that they would have a camera just left on like the broadcast but not go to commercial. But they do 3D computer generated cars of everyone on the track, which is great until something goes wrong with one of them, and then I've had a few times where cars were shooting left and right or disappearing completely off of there. And I didn't see a benefit to watching that and paying triple when most I was getting out of it was listening to the driver communications.
Moving on to our hot topics now for the week. the obvious is that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is really dominant again, but we're going to pick three other ones. One of the major ones is the Cup drivers in the Nationwide Series, and he saw the dominance again. Brad Keselowski won the race. Kyle Busch was really strong. The Cup guys were really in the top section of the field most of the day. You didn't really hear the Nationwide drivers.
So, Jason, in my opinion, the issue boils down to, do we place blame on the drivers or the organizations? And when I say organizations, you're going to look at who are some of the top Nationwide Series team. Roush Fenway Racing, Richard Childress Racing, you have your Joe Gibbs Racing, there's Team Penske in there too. The only oddball is JR Motorsports, which gets a lot of help from Hendrick. So the underlying factor is these are Sprint Cup operations that also run Nationwide Series teams. That wasn't as prevalent back in the day, so to speak, where drivers would run for independent teams. So my theory with this is, well, you have drivers dipping down and running races. Maybe it's more of an organization where, you don't have those independent Nationwide Series teams. They can't keep up because they don't have the resources of a Sprint Cup Series team. And it's just, it almost seems like it's too critical for those operations to be kind of hand in hand and success to be had.
I would definitely be for maybe giving the Cup drivers, I don't think you could ban the Cup team, the organizations from running in the Nationwide Series and giving them their cars, but if Cup drivers were driving for the more nationwide centered teams and the smaller teams that don't have as much equipment, that could create for a little more equal racing. But it's really hard to say that's going to happen because it's when all the couple organizations are already running the series, and they probably won't be pulling out for a long time.
Right, yeah, and you always want, them to have the ability to develop drivers. Just the example I keep going back to is Kyle Busch ran, I think, 3 years for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Nationwide Series, was winning everything left and right. He then branched off, started his own team in the Nationwide Series. He didn't win it all that year, and I understand that, the organization wasn't as strong as it could have been for one reason or another. He comes back to Joe Gibbs Racing, and I think he rattled off 12 wins last year, or something like that. Kyle Busch didn't run out of talent, but at the same time, he goes from an organization that has kind of nothing to, one that has all the tools that they ever need. He was competitive with his own team, but he didn't win. So would that be better to see these Cup drivers competitive and not winning versus winning all the time?
I really like what you're saying here, and making the Nationwide Series a little more competitive, I think, will help out fans, really, their B1 Cup drivers in the Nationwide Series, and also help out some young guns, including our next topic, which is Dylan Kwasniewski, who is in the Nationwide Series his rookie season. He now has signed a development deal with Chip Ganassi Racing, which is a pretty big step in his career, meaning that he more than likely has a Cup ride down the road with CGR, and he is definitely a talented rookie, but now having a little more map of his future is going to really boost him up even further.
And that's a perfect example of what I was just saying in front of that. Turner Scott Motorsports is who he runs for right now. Now he signs with Chip Ganassi Racing for endeavors in the future. Who's his teammate at Turner Scott Motorsports? That would be Kyle Larson, who drives for Chip Ganassi Racing. So it's almost like they go hand in hand now, the Chip Ganassi organization with Turner Scott Motorsports. And hopefully, for Turner Scott, that works out, that kind of partnership, because they were racing anywhere between 3 to 4 teams, and not only in the Nationwide Series, but the Truck Series. But due to sponsorships being lost and, driver movement, they're down to just a handful of teams out there.
Yeah, it was. Going to 2013 was really a big year for CSM, and they had a lot of teams, and they had a lot of young drivers they were bringing up. And now that they've really strengthened, their program has shrunk a little. It's really, they've got a few guys now, and Dylan is definitely a really great talent, and his last name's really hard to say and spell, so that might be a reason why he becomes known as Dylan K. But I think he's got plenty of talent. I hope he doesn't move up to the Cup Series right away like Larson did. I think he probably needs a good 2 or 3 years in the Michelin Series before even considering moving to the Cup level with Chip Ganassi.
You know, Larson comes along as good as everyone says that he should be if they don't rush Dillon. Man, Chip Ganassi Racing is going to be kind of a force in about 3 or 4 years. You know, obviously they don't want to, feel like they're throwing away the next couple of years, but having those two young guns, they're putting themselves in a great position to really challenge the Hendricks, the Roushes, the Gibbs of the NASCAR world.
And what's interesting is Sammy McMurray currently at Chip Ganassi Racing, and will Dillon go with him out of the ride? I don't know if that will happen. Dillon's got Rockstar Energy Drink as a really loyal sponsor, so I think you could see CGR expand to 3 teams again like they were and back many years ago, and it could just be like a new powerhouse team like you're saying developing that could really be a contender.
Yeah, they definitely have the pieces in place, and McMurray's shown a lot of speed this year, especially in qualifying. So, knockout qualifying, we had some near misses at Las Vegas, which have led to some changes that came through today. Jason, maybe you can take us through what the changes were today.
Basically, for the changes, is those cool-down laps we were all watching. The cars kind of cooled down, the teams kind of cool the cars down pit road. Two drivers drive around like 40 miles per hour trying to cool that car so they can go out and make another qualifying run. And that proved to be dangerous as, these guys who are actually making their qualifying runs coming up on these guys going 100 miles per hour slower. And it really opened the door for disaster to strike. And luckily we hadn't seen anything like that, but going to Bristol, if we had those same rules in place, it just seems all likely that something would happen, and it would be a really bad thing for NASCAR. But now allowing cooling on pit road through the roof, hood flaps, I think it's a hood flaps,
Yep.
will really prevent any drivers doing these slow cool down laps. Instead, they'll cool down or they'll go out and just go on the track for their main qualifying runs, which will add a little more excitement because drivers may go out to make a few more runs than they would have without having to be on the cooled cars on the road, and it just takes all the danger out of this new qualifying system.
Yeah, especially going to the tight confines of Bristol, they definitely needed to address it. I'm glad NASCAR addressed it as quickly as they did instead of, waiting for the train wreck to happen. And it was pretty interesting reading the feedback from a few crew chiefs. Most teams were already expecting changes like this to happen, so they've already been preparing for it. So I don't think anyone's going to be really caught off guard this weekend.
And Penske Racing has been dominating qualifying in the past, so it'll be interesting to see if they can go for 3 straight front row appearances. And one of their drivers, Brad Keselowski, is included in both of our power rankings this week, and we both have the same 3 drivers, and they're just not in the same order. I have Earnhardt Jr. leading the way, followed by Keselowski and Harvick.
And I chime in with Kevin Harvick still leading my power rankings, followed by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Brad Keselowski.
I think we'll both agree that the reason why we have Earnhardt Jr. included in the top 2 is because he had another stellar performance at Vegas. He didn't have the best car, but his 2 mileage at the end led to him getting a second place finish and a third top 2 finish start of the season. So he's hot right now, and he's doing really well. And the reason we both got included Brad Keselowski because he won at Las Vegas, and he had strong runs at both Daytona and Phoenix, so he's rolling, and he's probably considered second or third among the 3 highest drivers right now overall in the series. And Kevin Harvick, we both have him at the end, or the beginning, and the end. I have him at the end, myself at the beginning. And I put Harvick at the end because, Vegas, we had really tough issues out of this break, and that really, compared to Earnhardt Jr., was that pretty straight, stellarly finished and good Harvick up at the top because he was just didn't have as great a forecast Las Vegas.
Yeah, for my power rankings, I try to use a statistics-based formula. And by all logic, Earnhardt and Keselowski probably should have been 1, 2, just because they're the only 2 drivers who have finished in the top 5 in all 3 races. Harvick got the advantage because he's led a series-leading 247 laps so far this year, and I do have laps led as one of the criteria, and he has a lot more than Earnhardt and Keselowski at this point, so I think that's what's got him up high, although the margin was definitely cut into by Earnhardt by his performance. But at the same time, I mean, you take that hub issue out from Harvick and he would have been in the top 5 when it was all said and done. So unless he falters again at Bristol, he's definitely going to keep being a contender in my book.
Harvick is a really great short track racer, and going to Bristol, it's a really perfect opportunity for him to really capitalize on his success so far this season, excluding Vegas, and really build. And leading into our race preview for this weekend at Bristol, the thing is, short track racing has come back. Phoenix can be considered short track racing, but Bristol's true bumper to bumper short track racing, which everyone loves. I'm just excited to see all the action out on the track. It's never a dull moment at Bristol, and being able to watch another race there, and we always love seeing what stories unfold. On last year, you had the Logano Hamlin feud start, and you had Jeff Gordon wrecking as the leader, getting Matt Kenseth involved, which really took them both out of the race, and you saw Casey Kane at the end pull off a win. So there's going to be endless storylines on Sunday, and that's all the result for short track racing, which always proves to be some of the most exciting on the circuit.
You can say that the Daytona 500 was a very competitive race, especially near the end. Phoenix was said to be one of the best races at Phoenix in a while. We had opened the show talking about how this was a really good race at Las Vegas. So putting 43 cars into the bull ring of Bristol can only mean a great race is going to come from this, because like you said, Jason, you already have great racing most of the time. It's just a matter of seeing how all these cars handle each other, handle the track, how the drivers, who's going to hit who's going to bump, and who's going to take those chances. Now that you got 3 drivers kind of locked into the chase, are they going to do the sorts of gambling that Junior did at Las Vegas to go for a win, or is someone going to who really needs a win and that's their only opportunity to kind of do the old dump and run and try to take the win that way?
The new chase format definitely provides opportunity for a last lap wreck or bump and runs for a driver to get the win. If you see drivers who haven't won two drivers who haven't won at the beginning at the front of the field on the last lap, and they're both really side by side, expect some contact, because a win means a chase berth, and a chase berth means everything. So for drivers, more incentive to do that bump and run to win the races really out there with the new chase system. I think that's going to create a really exciting conclusion to the race, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some angry tempers after the race, especially between the guy who dominated today and didn't end up winning, because he may have gotten turned around on the last lap.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that we're going to see the same clean racing that we saw last August when Kenseth and Casey Kane battled each other. Very cleanly, very hard fought, but in the end, you didn't have that contact, and a lot of people question Casey Kane on why he didn't do that. But yeah, with this new system, like you said, if you get a couple guys up there that need a win, and
for our picks this weekend, it's really hard to not bet against Casey Kane. He finished one race last March and finished second in August, so he's my pick this weekend. I just think he's going to came out strong. Now Bristol's his really, actually no, he was strong at Vegas, but Bristol's another strong performance he had last season. I think it's going to kickstart his year, and a win's going to really make solidify a lot, like it will for every driver, but a lot for the number 5 team. And if he won't be the one to rough someone up to get the win, but I do see him really having a pretty good day and being able to hold off everyone at the end of the race.
I too am going with a driver that doesn't have a win currently this year. I'm actually going to pick from the Jason bank of Kyle Busch. I kind of was looking over his track record. He's tied for the most wins with 5 of them in his career among active drivers. He's got 8 top 5s, 12 top 10s, and 18 starts. He's got over 1,400 laps led. Last week, he showed a little bit of signs of life by leading 52 laps, but ended up faltering to 11th. He's been really quiet through 3 races, and I think Bristol will be an opportunity for him to kind of get out of his shell, get back into his winning ways, and he's definitely not one that's afraid to apply the bumper when needed to get a win.
Yeah, and you could definitely see both Kyle and Casey at the end of the race, which will really make for an interesting battle. But overall, we're going to see some great racing at Bristol this weekend, and if you are considering going to the race, I highly recommend Bristol Motor Speedway. It's such a really phenomenal race to see and a great experience to be at the track. So get out to Bristol if you're going to be in the area, but if you're going to watch any work, just expect some amazing racing.
I can't wait to tune in this weekend to watch both races because the action, even in the Nationwide Series, is going to be great.
Thanks for listening to the Fan3Cast. For more NASCAR coverage, check out startandparkblog.com and turn4racingnews.com. Follow along on Twitter at Fan3Cast, at startandparkblog, and at NASCARJason.